Let us understand the functionality of a drop-down field. Drop-down fields show a list of choices for users to select. Drop-down values can have 4 different sources. The data source can be chosen in Data panel in the Properties section. The data source can be from a field in another form, from a list of values, an SQL result, or from an API. We will come back to understanding of SQL from API source later. Choose the Select from List option to create a field with list of drop-down values. The values are provided as a comma-separated string in List Values field. For example, if we need a marital status field as a drop-down, create a drop-down field with Select from option and enter the list of values separated with a comma. Choose the Select from Form option to create a drop-down field that will list data from a field in another form as drop-down values. Consider a task allocation form with a drop-down field to select employee to whom the task is to be assigned. The drop-down should list the name of employees from employee master. Add a drop-down field. Choose Select from Form. Choose the employee master in data source form. Select the data source field. Axpert automatically frames a SQL and displays in SQL text. Save normalized is automatically checked in this case. Refer the form creation video for detailed explanation about Select from Form. Select from SQL is a critical feature to implement many business rules. This may also be used to write complex logic as SQL function and get the result into this field. Choose the Select from SQL option to create a drop-down field that will list the values returned by a SQL statement as drop-down values. Enter the SQL statement in the SQL text field. The first column in the SQL result will be listed as a drop-down values. The pop-out button at the right top corner of this field will open a full database console. This can be used to inspect all the DB objects, SQL functions, procedures, triggers, indexes, etc. Drop-down values may be listing data from other forms. If the required value is not found in drop-down at runtime, user may need an option to add. That means the data should be added to a master form. Select form name in the master property. At the runtime, the drop-down will have a link to add a new value. On click of this plus option, the form will be opened in the new mode, that is set in the master property. On submit of the data, the drop-down list will be refreshed. The new value will be listed in drop-down. Fill fields are associated to drop-down fields. The SQL in a drop-down field may have many columns. The columns in the SQL, other than the record ID column and the data source column, may be mapped to a field in the T-string. The column in the SQL that is mapped to a fill field is called source column. At the runtime, when the user selects a value in the dropdown, the value from a source column of the selected row is populated into the fill field. To define a fill field, add a text or numeric or date field. Select mode of entry as fill. Select the associated dropdown field name in the master property. Select source column from the SQL in the source property. Consider a form that contains two fields, employee name and employee gender. The name is a drop-down field in which user may choose an employee name from master. The SQL in the employee name should contain the gender column from the employee master. Select gender in the source property. On selection of an employee name at the runtime, the gender values are filled. In this way, fill fields are associated to a drop-down fields. In the next session, we are going to understand about the advanced feature of the drop-down field.